So one of the things that you'll end up seeing a lot whenever you start studying about kind of personal land development, starting a farm, building out a property, anything like permaculture, any of those sort of concepts, if you start really looking into it and studying it, most of them will tell you, observe the land for at least 12 months. That way you see the land in all 4 seasons. You have a chance to understand how the water flows, how the sun flows. You'll find different resources on the property, and you just get a good feel for how you might end up using your land and how you might want to build it out. If you end up trying to build something a little bit too soon, you may find that you regret it, or maybe it's not the best place to have built that, or any of those sort of things. And so since the land that I bought is already partially developed, I've started doing a few things because, well, like everybody else, I'm a little bit impatient. But I've still been trying to observe the land and take time just to walk the property and stuff. And something that I've kind of noticed but never really taken too much attention to is what I want to talk about today. And so the other day I found gold, not literal gold, but gold for me because it's free. And today I'm going to try to take some time to take advantage of it, and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. And so I'm over here out near the coops, and as I talked about before I moved in here, this area was occupied by both chickens, where I have mine, and goats, and of course a Great Pyrenees guard dog. And something I hadn't paid any real significant attention to is some of the details in here. And so this is all just kind of packed in seemingly mess, but what I actually figured out is this is actually years worth of packed in compost. And so underneath here is actually really rich soil, which is awesome. And what I actually noticed out here, and you can see I've done a little bit of digging, and I think they just put plywood down to keep it from being so nasty. What I actually noticed is there's still actual compost in here that is broken down and turned into this really rich black gold. It's really rich soil. And the more I started looking, the more I actually started to notice it's everywhere back here, which is why all this grass is growing up so big, so thick. And so, look at that. Oh, he got away already, but even in here there's worms and stuff. So this is an area with really nice, rich dirt, and you can see it's all the way out even to here. And let's see if we got any down here under this. Yeah, look at that. Yeah. Hello there, Twinkle. And so my hope today is to actually come out here and shovel up a bunch of this and go dump this in my raised flower beds. And then I might even, if I get the plow sometime soon, I might even come down here and try to see how much of this I can pick up and just dump in the garden. I don't expect to have enough to really compost the best way in the whole garden, but I'll definitely be able to cover my raised beds. What are you doing there, Twinkle? Hey, buddy. What are you doing? Oh, you pouncing on us? And so that's really just a long-winded way of saying that it does pay off to be observant and to take a little bit of time. And even though I've only been here, well, since July, and we're almost in November, I found some pretty good resources on the property, and that being, one that'll go through really quickly. I won't have a whole lot of resource from that, but it's free. A few of the other resources that I've actually found on the property probably aren't as valuable as that, but just by kind of wandering the property, I found some metal, So I found quite a few different areas where the previous homeowner had, I guess, left some of the spare metal that was used to build the barn in that building. So that blue sheet metal is what I actually used to help build my chicken tractor, or my chickshaw rather. So that was one resource. Another resource was actually, I found well, they've been scattered too, but I found quite a few of the brick that was used to build my house. I found the same brick stacked in a couple different areas around the property. And so some of those, a lot of them are still useful. And so, you know, I don't know what I'll use them for, if I use them at all. I don't know, I talked at one point about, well, maybe there's an opportunity to build like a brick raised bed. But I haven't done the research to see if that's a good idea or not. But I have enough brick to do it. I also have enough brick to repair some of the, you know, cracked bricks in the retaining wall and stuff like that. I also figure, while we're on the topic of being observant, I was actually looking out over the property earlier, and I haven't been down here since it rained the other day. And so it's been probably 48 hours since we had rain. And some of the areas that I was digging in the pond, they're holding water again, which is awesome. I'm gonna try to get some of this uncovered. See just how much I can actually get out of this. So ideally I would put this on my raised beds and cover them, but I don't really have anything to cover them, and it's kind of getting late to do a whole lot, so do what I can here. Does anybody know what this is? You know what this is? I've seen this stuff before. It grows like crazy all over this area, and I don't think I've ever seen it before. It rolls back just like a carpet. One thing I didn't really want to do is get, you know, that stuff in my flower bed, which would be the whole reason for covering it and trying to get any kind of seeds or anything to go ahead and germinate and die off. Maybe I need to go ahead and invest in a silage tarp, maybe a small one. That. That's good rich soil there. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So this goes down at least 3 or 4 inches before I start getting to the dirt underneath. And I'm seeing worms in here, which is also great. So I did do a little quick digging in here just to see, and it looks like there's a bit of degrading plywood underneath this whole area, which is fine. That'll break down like everything else. But I found an area over here to kind of dig into a little bit, and it does appear that this whole area has probably just been heavily compacted on the top for a while, but we do have good black soil underneath here. So in time I could actually come out here and dig some of this out, and it's mounted up pretty high. I'd estimate, especially over in this corner, it's probably up, you know, 4 inches maybe over the bottom, maybe 3.5 inches. Right over here, kind of in the middle and towards this side. And again, this is where it goes for a house, so it does kind of make a little bit of sense. But I'm gonna take this over and we'll start getting it put in the garden. Now I know there are some drawbacks to doing this and using this composted, you know, resource that I found. And a couple of those are, well, I haven't had a chance to really test my flower beds yet, so I don't know what soil quality they have. And I don't know what kind of soil quality, this is. Another thing is I'm going to be introducing, seeds that weren't in the bed before, from off the ground back there. And I also know that this won't be as rich and as valuable as a compost that's, say, fresh and that's been covered for a while. And so this is going to be, less nutrients dense, but it's still compost and it still helps. And something else that I'll get with this is introducing worms to the soil, giving them something to eat, helping them work it in over the winter months. So, there are pros and cons to using, cheap or free materials. And I'll take my chances. Look how much better that this looks than just the plain topsoil. Now, a lot of what I'm doing here comes a lot more from learning and studying and asking questions and communicating with people as opposed to practical experience. And while I have experience gardening, and I have experience raising some animals, I've never necessarily gardened at the scale that I intend to garden at, and I've never raised animals on the scale that I hope to one day raise animals on. I've worked in a greenhouse for a little while, and I took a lot of classes, learning agriculture, understanding loosely, soil composition, and understanding, the different nutrient values. And I actually do have a soil test kit, but I haven't managed to find it since we moved. And so, to a degree, I'm going at it a little bit blind. And some of it's just because, some of this has been expensive. But I'm also not afraid of doing a little bit of trial and error. And I think practical experience is ultimately more valuable than just studying and book experience, because there are things that, until you get your hands on it, it's just different. And that's not just gardening or raising animals or homesteading or any of those sort of things. I think that's pretty much anything. For example, I do a lot of technology for a living, and I took 4 years of school, and when I had my first job, that first 6 months on the job taught me way more about what I do today than the 4 years that I spent in the classroom. And I'm not saying that the classroom wasn't valuable, but what I am saying is that it can only take you so far. And I think really the studying and asking questions and learning without the practical experience is to teach you how to learn. The last point I kind of want to make on that is, don't feel like you got to learn everything the hard way. There are plenty of people that have probably done what you're trying to do, and it is absolutely worth seeking out the expertise of those that have done it before. And not to say you shouldn't jump in and try stuff and be willing to forgive yourself for making mistakes and always reserve the right to get better. And that's exactly why I've spent a lot of time reading books, watching YouTube, for example, watching other videos, listening to podcasts, and communicating with those in my area, so I can learn from what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. And I've talked about that, in conjunction with trying to build relationships. When you've got other people with experience that you can lean on, that's what I'm trying to do. And so I've got people like, some grandparents that have some experience. I've got some family that's got some experience. I've got, friends and friends of friends, and just people that I've never met. Like I said, reading books, listening to podcasts, and watching different videos and things. There are classes that you can take, and I'm definitely leaning on some of the experience that I've had, but those are just some areas that I think can help anybody. And again, the chick shelf, for example, I didn't design that, somebody else did, but I thought it was a good idea, and so I tried it, and there are definitely some mistakes I made with building it. And of course, getting back to the whole point of this video with finding the compost and spreading that, is it going to go well? Well, I don't know. I like to think it probably will, but you can't predict the future and predict the outcome. Study it. So sorry for getting off on that tangent there. I kind of do that a lot. But back to the whole being observant thing. Since I moved in, you know, I've been meaning to track down a pipe that I've got buried on the property here, and it's just a drainage pipe. You know, think the black corrugated pipe that, you know, comes off your house. For the pool here, the pipe over there is actually buried next to the filter and the pump, and that's actually the pump and filter for the pool and the runoff for the pool. And it's buried, and I knew it ran down this direction somewhere. And I've also seen, you know, down at the road, or sorry, down at the pond, I've seen, you know, bits and pieces of pipe that's basically, you know, busted. And if you go down there just to the right of those bushes on the edge of what I assume was the edge of the pond at one point, is an actual plastic pipe. But up this direction, up here, I noticed that it's actually a buried black corrugated pipe. The other thing that actually feeds that pipe, and I'll have to go over and show that another time, the runoff from the condensers for the upstairs and downstairs unit actually feeds into another section of that pipe, and I've always kind of figured it was probably tied in and into a T somewhere. But something I noticed when draining back some of the pool water a couple weeks back is that it wasn't draining real fast, and so I've never had an issue with it backing up, you know, with just the regular runoff. But I did notice that it wasn't draining all that quickly with regards to, you know, pumping a whole lot of water into it. Anyways, all that to say, back to the whole being observant, when I was rolling through here a few minutes ago, I noticed a bit of a dip here. And if you actually feel it, you can actually feel a bit of the pipe here. And then I noticed you can actually see some of the pipe here. And so I started kind of tracing it down, and I know at least part of the reason why it's not draining real well is right in here, it's actually completely collapsed. Now, one thing I will note is, and I assume that this would be the reason why it's not buried very deep right here, is that I'm actually standing very, very close to what should be my drain field lines for my septic, which is maybe a little obvious by most of the field being brown and this up in here being pretty dark green. On the topic of getting distracted, I actually came back out here to get maybe another load of mulch. And instead, I stopped and started digging for a random drain line in my field. So, like I said, I can get off on tangents. Alright, I think I got enough to finish off my raised beds, so I think I'm gonna go finish that up. Get those beds topped off. So something I haven't done that I've actually been meaning to talk about is to actually put a video together that's basically talking about why I'm making videos at all. And I think that's something I'm going to do pretty soon. Because frankly, anybody that's been watching any of our videos, they're a little bit random. Right, and there's not a lot of structure. And I kind of just doing a lot of different things. And I think the obvious is, well, filming videos about what we're doing here. That one's obvious. Otherwise, it's mostly just me rambling. Which, if I'm being honest, is one of the hard parts, I think, about shooting some of these videos, is figuring out what to talk about. And if you haven't spent any time talking to yourself, it can be a little bit awkward. So a lot of times what you're actually hearing is just me thinking out loud, to be honest. Alright, well, with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up for the day. Just about maybe spread a little bit, but that's pretty much that. That dark soil looks a whole lot better than that light soil, that's for sure. We'll wrap it up. I appreciate you spending some time watching if you've watched this long, and if you have any suggestions on things you might want to see, please let me know. I'll be happy to maybe try to get some specific stuff if there's things that I'm not really talking about that people are interested in. But in the meantime, we've got 2 prepped garden beds for next year.